What I would like to do is to hear from you why you're here. So we have a lot of you, and I'm glad you're here. I didn't expect so many, quite frankly. But I would like to talk about things that you're actually interested in. So maybe we can start even in the back corner, kind of wind our way through. If you just say, like, you know, magazine articles or children's book or something, the thing that you're interested in, or one thing that you're interested in, or maybe one question you'd like to see answered, that'll give us a better idea of maybe how to focus things. So we could start, Bob, with you.
Well, I've thought about different kinds of writing an article for the Governor Witness.
Okay.
You know, different subjects. Right now, my mind is in regards to
Is what?
the scriptural knowledge that I've gained from the death of my wife.
Okay, all right, good. And maybe there's so many of you that it would take too long to do. Let me put it this way. How many of you are interested in magazine article writing? Okay. How many of you are interested in book writing? Okay. Okay. How many of you are interested in writing for children, children's materials? Okay. Let me see what other genres are represented.
Just writing a letter to the editor of the newspaper.
Okay.
Yeah. Years ago, the late Ray Joseph told me he had a number of his letters published, like with Wall Street Journal and that sort of thing. He said there's a skill to that. There's certain things that we're looking for. So yeah.
Okay, so in a sense, being a better communicator, written communicator, anything that's not represented in
Modernizing the nation's old documents.
And what was the first word you said?
Modernizing.
Oh, modernizing, okay. All right. And which, we had at our workshop a couple days ago, we had J.K. Wall, who wrote The Side of the Prince Revisited. He's a journalist. So he took that old manuscript by Williamson and updated that.
I think there's a huge chasm in quality Christian fiction.
Oh, okay. And, all right, one is,
I would design for young adult bracket section of literature.
young adult, okay. That's, separate from children. Yeah.
Memoirs.
Memoir, okay.
Books that help home educators and do certain things, educate.
So you're trying to help them teach, help them educate. Okay. Anything else you have?
Small pamphlets like this on spiritual topics.
Okay, pamphlets. All right. You've got a wide variety.
I'm thinking about trying to write a book about my husband's life, similar to some of the other biographies that you've published.
Okay.
We have all of Dad's brothers from World War II, and he was a doctor, and because he wanted to all right, see you later. So it would be beautiful to use.
Yes, good. Yeah. Taking historical or family documents and putting them in print, that was what Rosario Butterfield did with her book Secret Thoughts on an Unlikely Convert. She started out wanting to report things for her children, and it just went from there. All right, well that's helpful to me. It does show me there's a lot of interest here, so we'll see how we do in the next hour to actually address your interest. I'm Drew Gordon, and I work for the Reformed Presbyterian Church in publications ministry. I work with my wife Lynn, who is here. We've been in this capacity for about 30 years now. Before that, I worked as an editor for a Sunday school literature publisher, and she worked in corporate communications. And before that, just as an anecdote, since we're at an RP conference, we met working on the student newspaper at Geneva College. So we've been praying for a long time, even still in an audience like this with so many interests, it is a niche. And also helping me out today is Linda Parker, who is a different kind of writer. She's done a lot of different writing work. Would you like to elucidate what exactly you do and have done?
Humor essays and novels, not at the same time.
Okay, and she's done some self-publishing. We haven't done that. We've done people who self-published, and I'm sure that's an interesting thing as well. So this seminar isn't intended to be somewhat relaxed. So I do hope you will feel free to interject, although I'm sure for everybody's sake, we'll also move through the material before you end, but we will have time for Q&A at the end, I trust. And we've set this up, the format is do's and don'ts, and I think it will be clear to you right away that this is not intended as something where you feverishly write every do and don't down necessarily. I'm not the kind of person who just does that, and not every one is going to be of equal weight. Some will be more important than others. The do's and don'ts kind of serve as placeholders for us to talk about certain topic areas. And one thing that I hope to have as a communicator, and I would like to see you have as a communicator, and it helps us interact, like when we're in an editor-writer situation, is humility and teachability. We as creative people feel strongly about the message we have to say, but it's good to be humble and it's good to be teachable. CBS recently did a little featurette on a lady from the 1920s, an upper class lady by the name of Lady Florence Foster Jenkins. And he already knows who she is. She was a singer, and at some point early in her life she developed a tinnitus of the ear, and it affected her understanding of pitch. And if she ever was a good singer, she didn't turn out to be a good singer, but because she had a good connection, she actually booked herself at Carnegie Hall, and a whole lot of other, she sold an album, and some people praised her, and some people really banned her. I mean, from a technical standpoint, and I can't sing, I'll be honest with you, from a technical standpoint, she couldn't sing. But a quote from her, she said at the end of her life, "Some may say that I couldn't sing, but no one can say that I didn't sing." I'm not sure we want it to be said of us. Some may say that I couldn't write, but no one can say that I didn't. So hopefully this seminar will at least take us a little farther down the road. So let's go to our first do here. Understand your audience and message, and this is, if you're going to be writing things down, this is worthy of writing down, not all of them are. This is critical. This is critical. We live in an age where endless books are available to anybody. Books throughout history are available at the touch of a button, and you can have them sometimes in less than a day. So you have to understand exactly who you're writing to and exactly what you want to say and how that is distinguished from the other books that are out there. So again, I know you have this burning message that you have to speak, but if you don't understand the world that you live in, the audience that you're wanting to reach, then you haven't yet communicated a thing. Okay? And so we want the communication cycle to be completed. So, do your research, and even before you go to a potential publisher, do your research. Who's the audience? What are they like? What would the editor be thinking about his audience? What would they need? What would speak to them? Know that going in if you can. Know how your message is again, is unique, is special, is needed at this given time, because I guarantee you that your editor will be thinking about that when he reviews your work. There is a lot of work wasted because people just said, I have this thing to write, and I just have to write it. And that's fine if you want to be the only one to read it, or, if you a few family members out of obligation want to read it with you. But if you really want to communicate, you have to do your work with them. And once you have decided on that, you have to focus your efforts. It's no good to say, well, this is my primary audience, but I'm going to hit every other audience out there. Again, you're sort of thinking like, this is going to be a million copy seller or something, and the more you focus, the better. And once you make that decision, it sort of carries through. Every chapter you write, every paragraph you write, you have to be thinking about that same audience and that same message.
I approve.
You approve?
I agree.
You agree with,
Yeah,
you agree with the importance
I
of
agree.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. Any question or comment about that?
If you want to research your audience or know how your idea differs, is that what you do? You do Google on a computer to research? Is that how? Are there any particular? Do you have any suggestions? Or?
Yeah, that is a great question.
In relationship to that, we often use focus groups. And right now, Etheridge is writing a book for us, and his focus is 20-somethings. And we had 4 college interns this summer at Crown and Covenant. So what better group to copy edit his book in, well, it wasn't really a copy edit, it's more of a feedback edit, and have a focus group on what things resonated with them, what examples don't work, what rabbit trails were confusing to them. So, and Rudd sometimes is doing that even as he writes. He'll bring a chapter and read it to a certain group of students on campus. So you can do that with your own writing. If you find your target audience represented in a group that you can put together in your neighborhood or something, you'll get a lot of feedback. Some of it you won't want to hear.
Yeah, so using Google is a great method because you can find out what else is out there that's already on your topic and what other people have said. And the focus group. In Crown and Covenant, we have to do things cheaply. As far as we don't have a big budget to hire focus groups. Some publishers go out and hire companies who will do focus groups, and we just don't have that option. But we are able to pull together people, and you can do that as well. So there are different ways. And so, question to you.
Does this apply in all cases? I mean, I understand for topics and things of that nature, person's life stories and experiences, for instance, they are what they are. So, I mean, you can't really change them to meet 20-somethings or...
Right, and you might have to be more limited. You might not have to be as expansive in doing focus groups. But,
Yeah, I was just going to say, what you choose to put in or leave out, you don't need to say what they have for breakfast every day. You know what I mean? It's just what is going to resonate in that story, and if you have a general theme you're trying to get across, even with someone's life story, you may want to choose to make sure the anecdotes you're telling get you there, and don't just, if they don't add to the person's persona or whatever you're trying to tell us about them, maybe they don't need to be in that particular book.
Yeah, you still need to consider your reader because you want to communicate to your reader, and if you like using 16th century language, and that's fine, but you have to understand that some people just may not buy it because of that. So your facts are going to be your facts, no matter what. But we all have to consider our audience to some degree, certainly.
run focus groups and therefore just regular secular writing. A lot of authors or writers who have online groups where they read each other's chapters and give them feedback. That's what the Christian groups are.
You can probably find online writers groups for any type of writing, any type
But
of.
if you just say Christian, you can get
Well,
a wide spectrum.
Well, right, I mean, especially if you already know people, even if you they don't have to necessarily be writing like you are. Sometimes you just want readers, and you can find beta readers of all stripes, depending on how broad you want your audience to be. They're out there.
I'll also offer a suggestion, depending on where you're at in the stage of research, to go to Amazon. Amazon slices everything into small pieces when it comes to genre, and you can get very, very specific. To go there, to find your specific genre, even down to, Amish romances that involve men from the city.
Vampire art.
So if you click on that and you get to that small slice of the pie, you can see the top 5 books. Just read them. And now you know how to communicate with that target audience. They all read those top 5 books.
Yeah, to add to that, and read the reviews. Read what the criticism is and what is lacking in that genre that you think you can provide. Because ultimately, yes, you need to know your audience, but you need to understand what the audience needs and wants, and you want to fill that gap.
Like I said, we've been in this job 30 years. 30 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about nearly as many low-cost resources as we have now, so that's a wonderful thing. And I'm going to move on to some of these questions you may still have. Either will come up during the rest of it, or we could pick up at the end. Another one, have an outline and structure. Maybe is a no-brainer to some people. I'm not particularly an outline and structure person, but that doesn't matter because you still need to have an outline and structure. It doesn't always need to be in writing, but even the good writers, or at least the good writers that I've worked with, they get off, off the flow of things. They get sort of, they get so worked up, when you're actually in the process of writing, you get so worked up about what your message is and what you're passionate about that you do go on these bunny trails, and well, maybe a pastor or two has done that in the sermon as well. And they get off the outline, and it's even hard to follow. And so you're trying to sort of put this together in your brain in a way that you can take it away, and you're wondering where we are, right? And the reader does that too, and sometimes the reader responds by putting the book down, and they never can get back to it. So you have to have an outline, you have to have a structure, you have to stick to it, even if you don't have everything written down. So as an editor, I know I'm looking at every chapter or every chapter of a book or every part of an article, and I'm thinking to myself, how does this flow with what comes before and after? And are we getting lost in the trees here, that kind of thing. Anything like that there. Another thing that works, that an outline does, of course, is it helps to keep a dramatic tension to your work because you're revealing things a little bit at a time. It's just like a PowerPoint. Sometimes you start to wonder, well, what's the next point, right? And as you kind of build to it, and maybe not today, but you kind of wonder, as you build to it, what's the next point that we haven't learned yet? And your writing should be building that way. And certainly, as an author, you always have to be thinking about tension. There has to always be tension there, or the reader in this day and age will not continue. Will just go on. This relates a little bit to the first point, and maybe is more specific. Do find an angle. If you're wanting to write an article for a magazine, for example, you have to get very specific. In a world where so much information is available, at one's fingertips. People want to know really specifically what what point you're going to address, because, well, just with our magazine, the Reformed Presbyterian Witness, when Lynn and I were interviewed, the board at that time basically wanted to hear us say, we would like to expand the readership of the Witness to go well beyond the Reformed Presbyterian Church. And now I would think if we were to have that same interview, what I would think the board would want us to hear us say is, we want to just focus like a laser beam on not only the Reformed Presbyterian Church, but what needs aren't being addressed or what things aren't being said in the Reformed Presbyterian Church. What things that we can do better than somebody else can. You just have to focus a lot more on a lot of information, and you have to help filter and focus for people. So if you're writing a magazine article on, I'll just say the Christian approach to transgenderism. We've had so much in the Reformed Presbyterian Church try to have a Reformed perspective on homosexuality. So if you're looking for that, even within that topic, you can focus really narrowly, because the magazine article is only 2 pages. You can only cover so much, and there's just a lot of information just on that. So how does a Christian look at a particular facet of that? And I know that, well, my experience is that the more learned a person is in a particular area, the more likely they are to tell you all they know at the beginning and why they're qualified to write. And if you're writing something as short as a magazine article, you have to just get right into the topic. And maybe you have to tell people in the process, read Romans 1 or whatever, but to do an exposition of Romans 1 and then in the last 3 paragraphs really get to your point just doesn't work. So you do have to have an angle, and you have to have a focus in your writing. Any questions on these 2 points?
In the last seminar that y'all had with the authors, you mentioned that normally they read only about 20 pages. So do you guys require, say, send us only 20 pages, but if you send me 20 pages, do you want the outline of the rest of the book?
Good question. I think, Rick, actually, that's going to segue into the next point. If I don't answer fully, raise your hand.
Is the angle the same as the hook? Try to get
that's
you.
What I was thinking. That's how I will differentiate it in the sense that a hook helps to maybe a catchy title that draws your reader in, but it coincides with the angle of your article. It's not just there to draw attention. It actually tells them and communicates the angle that you have in your article. Yeah, and related to that too, and maybe Linda has something to say about that, but in the world of self-publishing, internet publishing, that's even more important. If that's your intent, is to self-publish and put it online. It's much more difficult than if you get a publisher to, convince a publisher to publish your work, because they've got their audience already. You actually, unless you're a well-known author, which I don't know of anybody here who just throws something online and just everybody wants to buy it. It's going to have to sell itself, and you think about how it's going to sell itself, and so having that narrow focus and being geared towards something somebody can discover in a few words, that's important.
Is an angle like a thesis statement in a speech, where you have, instead of just saying my book is about drama, I would say drama can't be taught simply, and that would be I'm saying something about the topic. Would that be?
I would say so. Yes. All right. And the next one, follow submission guidelines, which we're getting into. you know, again, you may have a great message or article, but you have to think of the person. If you're thinking about communicating to your reader, you also have to think about communicating with your editor or whoever you would like to publish your work. I know we get plenty of things that show that the person is completely unaware of who we are and what we do. Other than that, you know, we look like we had a Christian name. You know, they discovered us on the internet, and so they send us an article and they send us a book idea. And the fact is, if you're not a Reformed Presbyterian, you don't have much of a chance of being read by us. And so it's really important to know who you're trying to write for, who your editor or publisher will be, and what their guidelines are. Usually they're published, they're out there. If not, you can ask for them. But if you haven't done the work to show that you actually care about that other person and what their demands are, why should they care about you and take time out of your day? Because that's a really poor sign of future relationship that they are completely ignoring you. I mean, if a writer is ignoring what the editor says from the very beginning, not a good sign. Yeah.
That's very specific. If you go to their website and they say send us the first 2 chapters and a synopsis and a bio, and you send them the first 5 chapters and no synopsis and a 12-page bio, they will not even look at it because they know you're just sending things out shotgun style, and they're probably one of 50 people you send things to. So you need to customize that, find out exactly what they want, and do it exactly that way. They get, bigger publishers especially, and editors, have their desks full of things that they just can't wait to reject because that makes their day easier. So definitely, this is a big one. I would say this is probably one of the biggest ones if you want to be traditionally published.
You have an answer about, let's say you wanted to write a book for Crown and Covenant or similar.
Yeah, and our process is different than other people's process, but I think it's fairly typical. We ask for a table of contents. 1, no more than 2 sample chapters, and a cover letter that talks about your audience, something that tries to get us excited about your book. And then we take it to our board and we have a publication review process that goes on. It's very discouraging to just get a big manuscript with no table of contents or introduction to the book, and I think that's pretty typical of most publishers, right? That they want a table of contents
For nonfiction, yes.
for nonfiction.
What about for fiction?
Well, for fiction, they actually do want the whole manuscript. Because anybody can probably hook somebody in a chapter, but they want to see where the story's going. Most of them also want the short, several-page synopsis in which you do tell the ending. And you say, and you have to read the rest to find out what happened. An editor doesn't want to hear that stuff. So, yeah, fiction's different. You usually have to have the book done for fiction, but nonfiction, they often don't want you to finish the book because if they hire you to write that book, they may want to tweak something, some direction you go for nonfiction. So they want to see the table of contents, where you want to go, but they would like to only see a few chapters so that they can help you develop the rest of the book.
And then a lot of magazines, they just want a query letter.
Yeah.
They don't want any article, they don't want anything else. They just want a little short, succinct letter from you saying, I'd be interested in writing this for you. Are you interested?
In all those cases, it could save you a lot of work, time, postage.
Look for endnotes and footnotes.
Well, endnotes or footnotes, are you talking about in your manuscript as you submit them?
Yeah, or this matter.
I don't know how much it matters. I mean, we have opinions about how things appear in the book. And for us, we go with the endnotes. I'm not sure if it matters in the manuscript per se, and we'll get into another point related to that later.
I'll explain. You're talking about yourself, the writer, talking about yourself. So,
what should you submit as far as bio?
If you're totally, nobody knows you, except your relatives. Yeah, I mean,
What should you put in there?
yeah, what kind of, I mean, how much time do you spend on that? How much?
Well, certainly put in there what you know connects to that publication. You know, if you're writing to me, you better let me know if you're a Reformed Presbyterian and what congregation you're in. Well, people don't, so I have to go back and ask that, and, you know, why it is you were qualified maybe to write on this, something about your background.
But that doesn't necessarily become part of the book.
Right, that's, if it's a book, that's down the line where we worry about everything that's in there left out. But you telling me a little bit about yourself at the beginning is helpful. That does lead into this a little bit because, you know, when you submit something, it's nice if you have images, including your, you know, an image of yourself that might accompany the manuscript. It's just nice to get that without having to ask for it. But, you know, especially if you're writing something like a magazine book, you know, you don't worry so much about submitting images, but if you were submitting an article, let's say to the Witness or another magazine, and you have photos or ideas for graphics or something, you know, a chart that would be ideal for your article, it's good to have those ready when you submit the article. It's really helpful. Let's see. Yeah, and if you're going to self-publish, images are going to be critical because the images that you conceive of are going to be images that end up in the book, you know, because you're the editor a lot of times, and so you have to think about what people are going to see, and you know whether you have.
Well, make sure you have copyright. If it's not a picture you took, don't just get it off the internet. Don't just grab it off Facebook. Make sure I would go to a legitimate site like iStock Photo or Photolia, or there's a bunch of them out there where you can buy royalty free images, and then you can put them in your book or whatever. So just drafting something in.
Yeah, and what do people see when they go to Amazon to look at your book? I mean, how does that affect your choice of images?
Oh, well, that kind of gets into the cover design more than anything else.
Okay.
So I'll wait till you get that. You want me to do that now? Is that under this point?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, cover design has changed a lot in the last 5 or 10 years because now many people shop for books on their smartphones, on their black and white e-reader Kindles, on very small devices, and so your cover needs to look really clear and really good and get your point across, even if it's black and white and this big. Picture someone scrolling on Amazon on their phone, and don't believe it when someone says they don't judge a book by the cover. That's the first thing they judge it. So the title has to be readable, the image has to be clear what type of book it is, they need to grab by that image, and then they will go read the description. But nobody reads. Here's what people do. This is like the best one of mine for because you can see it at any size. It's clear what it is. But most people, even in a bookstore physically, they will look here first, maybe they'll do this, then they'll read the back word, and then maybe they'll look a little further. But this is always first. And it's only in the last 5 or 10 years since e-readers have really come in that cover designers are now having to rethink cover design, and you can't have anything too busy or anything with very small lettering or fancy script, because when it's this big, you can't see it. So that's something to really keep in mind. And that's probably going to keep changing, but that's where it is now.
I have a quick question. If you were using images which are not really copyrighted, but let's say it's from that's an archaeological museum photograph or something of that sort, and you want exactly that same image. Let's say a map something of some sort. Now, do we just grab that, and we also need to give a source of where we got it, and that's actually we need that in the final manuscript.
Yeah, the whole thing with copyright, I mean, that's complex. Often places will tell you, like she mentioned, iStockphoto.com, they will tell you what you need to acknowledge for what type of publishing. You know, if you're pulling it out of an archaeological manual or something, or, I mean, if it's an historical book, you know, it's, let's say 100 years old, you're probably okay. And my wife knows more about copyrights than I do, but you know, you get to more recent times in my lifetime, and then the questions start to, copyright questions come up. There's other places, Wikimedia Commons is another one. You know, there's a lot of free stuff, but there are different levels of allowance for you to actually publish that image, and then if you're publishing it to get money out of it, and it'll say there, and they've got lots of historic photos, that sort of thing. So you may have to, if it's a published book, you may have to contact the publisher. In fact, if you're going to publish a book with that image, I would suggest you do contact the publisher about using that image.
And you can often find an alternate image that's not copyrighted, that's in the public domain. Just an example would be New York Public Library recently photographed all their historic art and archives and put it all online, and it can be used as long as you attribute it. There's no fee, license fee. But if you know that something was taken by a particular photographer, you need to ask that photographer and give permission, and often there is a license fee. And one issue we're facing right now with Rutt Etheridge's book is he uses a lot of song lyrics. And I'm going to have to write to every copyright license holder and ask for permission to quote their lyrics, even though it's just a few lines. Right, Linda?
Yeah, because song lyrics are particularly difficult. And they probably take a long time. Yeah.
So the publisher does that. So the author just sort of says that they want those images where they found it, but the publisher's the one who's
Yeah, if you're going to work with a publisher, that's a very convenient thing, is they handle all that. If you're self-publishing, you need to handle it or you will be sued. Yeah.
And you need to be candid with the publisher about, you know, where this came from, whether they were
Dad had a lot of military pictures. Some of them show like where the battle was, but not the battle itself. Am I going to have to check the military people on some of the pictures that he has?
Are you talking about which war?
World War II.
World War II, and then you're probably fine. You could talk to my wife after. She knows the gradations of the copyright law better than I do, but you're probably fine.
One of you mentioned that when you submit a work of fiction, usually you submit the whole piece to be checked over it for the publisher to check over it. So what would you suggest a person do if they are looking for help? Like I heard mention of a focus group. Well, how do you get a focus group to check out your work of fiction if you don't have a publisher that's interested in your work? You see where I'm going?
Yeah, I would just say find a local writers group,
Okay.
or one online. I belong to several, and I try not to make, I try to say smaller groups are better. If you're in a group of 500 people and it's open to the public, you're going to get very unhelpful, comments on your book from people who don't know you. But a group of like a dozen people, especially online, works really well, because some people don't have time to read your own books, but if you can get to learn to know these people, you can then trust their opinions a little better.
What do you suggest a person does about ideas they've created themselves? Like, there are a lot of ideas that can be generalized and expanded upon in various ways. So I'm not trying to say, like, I come up with an idea that's general and I copyright it, but what if I have an idea for a story that I would take to a writer's group online or something, and I want to protect my rights to it since I've created it? How does...
Like, you're afraid other people in the group would steal it?
Or take it or something, yeah.
A few things on that. Number one, that happens a lot more rarely than you think. I think everyone feels that way. And that's why I like smaller groups where I get to know people first, is I know the people that I share my writing with before it hits the streets aren't going to steal it. And it's not just because it stinks. But sometimes that's it. But I trust them to read and give me feedback, and then I'm not going to see it in some other form in their writing later. So it's definitely a trust issue, but there are people out there, but start small. You really only need a few people who have kind of different perspectives, and you'll get a nice broad range of comments.
Okay, keep your comments. I'm going to move through a couple more points here, just keeping an eye on the time, but keep your questions in mind. And related, I'm going to throw under the umbrella of images a completely different topic, which has to do with the word pictures in your writing. To me, so this gets to content. I mean, to me, it's critically important. Anecdotes, word pictures are what resonate with me. I mean, even from the talks this week, the stories and how they relate to the topic in the scripture, those sort of help cement the rest of it for me. And that's true for a lot of readers, not all. So be thinking about word pictures as you move through. I don't care what genre of writing you are in, think about the word pictures along the way. It could be just a word or two. It could be an extended one. It seems to me that the natural inclination is to actually make it shorter than they should be. I think people like to sort of delve into the richness of the story and immerse themselves in the story. Some people want to just do a sentence or two about a story, and it doesn't give you enough to really relate to. So just an idea that your writing has to have that color, has to have that personality to it. Or I know for Dr. Rosario Butterfield's most recent book, I mean, the story that people remember, and one of the things that people remember about the book itself is her relating when she and her family went to a speaking engagement and on hospitality, and people broke into their home while they were at that, maybe even knowing that they were going to be away at that event, and how they had to respond to that, and how they had to kind of reach out in their neighborhood after that. So that story just goes on and on, but it's so powerful. It really tells a lot of the story of that subject of hospitality. So finally, we're going to get into the don'ts. And the first one I think we've mostly covered already, just in talking about reviews. Maybe one additional point is, if you're self-publishing, you have to be, again, really aware of this. If you don't know, what genre your work is in, nobody's going to find you. Being found if you're self-publishing is the key. So you have to know where you fit, what are the categories that are out there, and get placed there. And just sort of accidentally, or completely accidentally, as far as I was concerned, Rosario's latest book, Open the Unhindered, the subtitle has sexual identity in it. And soon after it came out, we were noticing that it would be in the top 5, sometimes number 1 or 2, under human sexuality on Amazon. Well, you don't only have to glance at the page on human sexuality on Amazon to know there's a whole lot of weird stuff on that page. And so I was really thankful that there's Rosario's book right there. But the way we worded the title had an influence in how people were seeing it and who was finding it online. Then I'll go to don't number 2. Don't expect the final copy of your work to look like the first draft. And this again gets to humility about your own work. Hopefully you and the writer, you and the editor are humble people. You and the people who review your work are humble people. I mean, if you want to improve, you have to sort of have that group, that work group mindset. This is a work group. You're writing as part of a work group, and certainly the longer you work, the more that's true. You should be open to hearing what friends and family say, but also what other people you trust say about what you're writing. You should be open to what the editors say about your writing. And you have some blind spots, believe it or not, even if you're a really good writer, you have some blind spots, and so at least consider what other people are saying. Doesn't mean you always capitulate, but at least consider what other people are saying, and so actually in the end, your work may look considerably different than it does at the beginning. Again, one reason if you're writing a book to submit a couple of chapters, we've worked with some authors already where even the number of chapters and how each chapter, what's in each chapter has changed. Those are huge changes in a manuscript. And also obviously know who, what's the expertise, what are you looking for from the person you ask to read what you've written. If your wife or your husband is a good proofreader, you'll understand that the other comments they might not be, you can listen for them, but you're paying attention to the proofreading. And if, let's say Rod Etheridge with his book, he gives his manuscript to several college students. They're good at understanding what speaks to their culture. They're maybe not so good at understanding the philosophical underpinnings of what he's writing. Any other points on that?
What is the difference between editor and copy editor? I think proofreader is pretty clear.
Yeah, copy editor's in between those things, really. The editor, I mean, if it's a bigger place, the editor is looking at big picture. And the flow of the book and big problems and big assets of the book. And the copy editor is considering grammar, flow, style. And then the proofreader, that's usually farther down the line. You're assuming that all that stuff is in pretty good shape. Sometimes he or she will catch big picture stuff, but they're mostly looking for typos and horrendous grammar. A page that, a sentence is unfinished at one page and at the top of the page. And this one we've already talked a little bit about, just to do your homework. Credit people, credit copyright holders, credit people who helped you with your book or your work, credit photographers. Nowadays, more and more you have to get permission of people who are in any photos that you're submitting. Certainly, if you borrowed from anything, if you quoted scripture, if you quoted any work at any length at all, you have to be careful nowadays, really, really careful about crediting those sources.
So if you're quoting a little bit longer passage, and you get what kind of approval do you need? So, like, I work for a Christian organization and wanted to quote a piece in the book, and I asked for permission, and she said, "Oh, sure, go ahead, as long as you say where you got it from." But do you need anything further than that?
Often you don't, and there are rules. There's legal rules, and just in the last few years, we've had to retain legal counsel because of all of the legal questions that now come up. Just even as a Christian publisher, we would put the denomination at risk to not get counsel on some things. So there are lots of rules, and even the attorneys sometimes say, well, there's this percentage risk in doing this, and that's the world we live in.
So it's better maybe to get something in writing?
Yeah, it's always better. It never hurts to ask in that sense. They just do due diligence. And typically in the Christian world, people are kind and generous with
But most scripture publishers have guidelines on their website, and they're usually very generous, and they're very much just depending on you attributing the publisher.
They give you a statement where you can quote, you can copy it onto your paper.
Exactly.
But his question, my understanding is, the King James Version, there's no approval needed. But yeah, with the new King James, you do need approval, and probably a lot of the other modern ones.
Yeah, if not approval, at least you need to cite, you know, depending on the length of the quotes and that.
Right.
You at least need to say this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then it's obvious you're not maliciously trying to copy something.
We may make reference to this later on, but everybody, if they're going to get into this, would be well advised to buy the latest edition of the Chicago Manual of Style, the $45 version, the red book, which lays out a lot of these rules.
Yeah, Chicago Manual Style is a good friend to writers. It's not reader friendly. It's not user friendly. You have to kind of learn which sections are applicable. I hate the structure of it, but when I was doing editing every day at the Sunday school publisher, we knew which sections we had to consult there.
You can also subscribe to that online yearly, which I do because it's a tax deduction for me, yay. Which is nice because you can, instead of flipping through that weird index in the Chicago Manual on paper, you can type in keywords and it'll just bring up everything in the book. So the online version is faster, but it comes at a yearly subscription price. So awesome.
You're also going to want to, I mean, a lot use Chicago Manual Style. Not every publisher does, and a lot of publishers will use, aside from a manual style, they'll also have their own in-house rules as well. I work for Reformation Heritage Books, and they have their own in-house rules along with another thing as well. So you're going to have to pay pretty close attention to the publisher you want to be publish your work as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And for those publishers that don't demand strict adherence to certain things, you will still delight them if you actually did your homework and do things according to the style.
Well, Linda was just saying that the house style, that everyone has a house style. Like Drew's house style he uses on the Witness is different than the house style I use on books. But we don't expect our writers to know the house style. I mean, we are thrilled if they ask for a copy, but like I use Christian Manual Style in addition to Chicago, and in terms of how to abbreviate books of the Bible and what biblical terms to capitalize and things like that. But not every Christian publisher would, and they don't expect you to know that. But you just have to be willing for that to happen to your book later on in the process.
We're going to move ahead. I want to get through all the points before we close. And some of this leads into a point a couple from now. This is just a quick one. Don't mindlessly follow trends. But again, I've heard from some people that you have a really specific vision and message, and you need to, obviously you want to follow that and communicate that. You're not out there trying to write a Christian romance novel because you think there's money to be had there, that sort of thing. And I think that is understood by this audience. You're talking about personal history. I loved Joe McFarland's book, former Geneva president. Joe McFarland is now with the Lord, but we still sell his book. Something about being my time on the clock, something in the subtitle about being a college president. Boy, that's a very personal memoir, but he's colorful. McFarland's know how to tell stories, and I love that book. So he had a message to give. He knew he wouldn't sell thousands of copies, and he just did a good job with it. And this, related to things we were saying a couple points ago, when you submit something, submit it in simple form, a simple Word document. It carries return at the end of a paragraph. That's really the formatting you need to know. Obviously, if there's a title, italicize the title, but we get lots of people wanting to help us lay out their article, and here's what we do. we take it in the Word, we strip out all the formatting, and we send it as plain text into our layout program, and we lay it out the way that we lay out all our other articles and books. So don't help. Now, if you have a concept that you want to communicate, you can sketch it out or write it out or whatever, or say, here's an idea, but we have other standards and structures that we have to follow, and it creates a lot of work. Nowadays, a lot of that is automated. In the old days, we used to have to go through, piece by piece, character by character, and fix the formatting, or come up with clever code to do that for us. So don't try to do anybody else's work. Just do your own. Follow the guidelines. I would just use a regular font. Just use Times for everything, whatever you use. Just use it for everything. Again, if you have an idea for, oh, this is a font I like, but for example, in the magazine, we have a set of fonts that we use for just about everything. And so you might think that this font would go really, this is a techie article, and here's a techie font. That's not how we feature things. That's not according to our in-house style. So just do plain formatting and everything else in suggestion. And just for fun, I think this is number 6 on the donut, and we said 5 dudes of donuts, but we just felt like throwing another in there. Titles are really important. Again, just like your cover image, title may be the only thing that people see. I know for a magazine article, and it goes to other kinds of writing too, we were taught you tell your story in several different places. You tell your story in the title, you tell your story in the pictures, and you tell your story in the text. And you just want to be cognizant of that as you're doing your writing. Now, we don't always even use the titles that people suggest. That comes into the editor-writer relationship. Often the people haven't thought very much about the title, or they give us a title that is the same as 100 other articles that we receive, maybe with one different word. A Christian view on whatever. And we need to differentiate how that is different from the 10 other articles that we featured on that. So I think that's, just one more point I want to make, and then I think we have a couple minutes for questions, is that, we are at Chronic Covenant and the RP Witness, we are looking for articles and books. We have limited resources, we have limited ability to publish. We might print several titles a year on a good year. So if you all submit something, you know we're going to be published by us, but we are looking for Reformed Presbyterian authors who have a message and who can communicate. We have contacts that we use throughout the denomination to bring ideas to us, but the fact is there's a lot going on that we know about, and there are a lot of stories to be told that we don't know about. A lot of experts on topics. Who out there knows is an expert on a Christian way of a reformed way of thinking about this topic that's on people's minds? We'd love to know that. So either write us a letter about an article, write us a book proposal. So we are welcoming that. Time for just maybe a question or two.
You talked about submissions on different genres. What would be the submission process for basically you're publishing an old out-of-print title, or maybe something that's a selection from an older author that obviously is no longer living, a work that's no longer copyrighted? Would that just go through the ET board, or would that go through Chuck Covenant?
Submission process.
Well, in terms of Crown and Covenant, that would come in as a proposal and be seen by our publisher's work, you have to query them.
Yeah, that's good. It's good that you mentioned our board too, because we operate under the Education Publication Board elected by the Senate. We're elected by the Senate. So publication review. If it's a brand new book, it would go through the whole board. If it's something like that, it would just go through publication review. Okay, we have like 20 seconds. Yes.
What's the process to copyright your work?
What's the process to copyright your work?
According to the United States government, a work is copyrighted at the time it's created. To prove the copyright, there are different things you could do. You could register it, you could, some people mail it to themselves so it has a postmark, things like, or just get it, in print with a certain date on it, but it's copyrighted at the time of creation. It's your intellectual property, protected from that day, as long as you can prove it.
If you email it to yourself, you'll have an email.
Just real quick on the copyright, so what is the year for a book or a newspaper article back to when, 1920, 1900, what are the dates,
Yeah, it used to be 50 and now it's more.
It's like 75.
75 years back. All right, unfortunately we're out of time. We'll be happy to answer other questions you might have this week and beyond. It's just my email address, drew@crownandcovenant.com. My wife is Lynn, L-Y-N-N-E. So thank you for coming.